Carlos Ramirez, owner of NVS Audio, Roselle, New Jersey. So we're finishing up this 2024 Road Glide. Decided to make a quick video for anybody that's going to be adding any sort of fog light or auxiliary lighting to the 2024 Road Glide or Street Glide. Harley's made some stuff really simple on these new bikes, like adding heated gear. Then they've made stuff really difficult, like integrating to the factory audio system. But the fog lights is one of the easy ones that they made for us. So everything's integrated into the touchscreen. I'm going to show you step-by-step procedure how to activate it. So you simply go into the menu and tell the bike that you're adding fog lights. You cycle the ignition, then the option's on the screen. You just hit the touchscreen and it automatically turns the fog lights on. The bike is pre-wired for fog lights. So underneath the bike, there's a 4-pin plug that's capped off. I saw in one of the forums where somebody was complaining that there's no skid plate underneath the bikes to protect the wiring and the harnesses. I had no idea what he's talking about. Now I completely understand. So, and I checked my CVO too. I have a 23.5 CVO, and I was just under this customer's 24 Road Glide. They're both the same. The area directly underneath the bike in the front is completely unprotected. I could definitely see issues in the future with rocks and stuff kicking up. So I'm sure somebody's going to design a skid plate. That, as a matter of fact, on this client's bike, the plug had been knocked loose. So I guess something hit it and knocked it loose. So I didn't even have to use a pry tool to bring the plug down. It was already hanging. But after we did the mod, we hung the plug higher than it would go from factory. So stuff won't kick up and hit it. It's a 4-pin plug. It's got a cap in it. I know some guys out there make a plug and play harness for it. We're trying to deliver the bike tomorrow, and luckily I have the pins in the shop, so I just pinned it. The connector is actually on there. It's a 4-pin connector. It's on there with some rubber seals to keep the water out, so we were able to pull it out. I happen to have the pins in stock, so we pinned it, built our own harness. Use some Tech Flex braided looming and some waterproof marine heat shrink to cover the connector. Built a quick little harness for it. I verified before I did it that the relay and the fuse are intact from factory, and there are. I did not have to add a fuse to the fuse block. I did not have to add a relay. Once I activated in the touchscreen, I simply cycled the ignition, pressed on, fog light on the touchscreen. Then it gives you 4 wires. It gives you a positive and a ground and a positive and a ground. So when you hit the fog light switch, the two of the pins go hot, and then obviously 2 of the pins stay ground. So we ran all 4 wires up to where we run our harness under the seat. The client supplied the fog lights for these custom lowers that we're doing. It came with a relay setup that we didn't have to use and an ugly switch. So it came with a waterproof switch, was really ugly, does not match the bike at all. And I was not going to drill holes in the client's fairing. So even if I couldn't make the touchscreen solution work, we were going to do a hidden switch somewhere. We were not going to drill holes in this client's fairing. Luckily, we didn't have to do either. We were able to use the factory touchscreen. So on the older street glides and road glides, like the 2014 through 2023, you would have to buy the auxiliary switch from the factory. That would go on the factory switch panel. You would have to buy the relay kit from the factory. So the bike was semi-wired because if you plugged the 4-pin harness in under the seat and hooked up the wires to the battery, then got the plug-in for the front, then the accessory lighting would be active. A, it was confusing because there was like 4 or 5 different part numbers. B, it was very labor intensive because you had to, well, it wasn't labor intensive, but you had to pull the accessory panel off. On some, you would break the trim panel around the ignition switch. This eliminates all that because everything's done through the touchscreen. The bike's already pre-wired for it. You can buy the harness from Harley, or you can make your own like we did. So we pinned the harness, ran the wires up to where we ran the wires for the fog lights, which is at the battery, tied everything up, and boom, everything worked. It was super. It literally took me the longest to build the harness. So if you buy the factory 4-pin harness and plug it in, it's literally a quick install. Installing the fog lights will be the hardest part, the most time consuming part. The wiring is gonna be a piece of cake, and you just go and activate it through the touchscreen. It takes 30 seconds. But here's some video of the process and how it came out. Okay, first thing you want to do is actually activate the fog light function from the touchscreen. So you go settings, bike function setup, blah, 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 continue. So you can activate, what we want to do is activate the fog lights. Cooling fan was already activated. So you activate it here. You back out of the menu. You cycle the ignition. It says right here, do not change installed if accessory is not installed, because you'll get an error code. So you cycle the ignition. Cycle it back on. Menu, bike, now fog light off, fog light on. Let's see if it works. Fog light on. Hey, fog lights off. Now whenever you turn on the ignition, the fog lights are going to come on a second after the ignition comes on. So ignition on, fog lights on. No extra buttons, no extra switches, no extra relays. Nice factory fit and finish. Now she can go back together.